Hey guys, it's Cream, aka Miss Cream of the Crop, and welcome to another episode or another interview for 216 Elite Radio Station. I'm used to saying conversations with Cream or the Elite Radio Show because that's my thing, but this is for the station. So I'm so excited because you guys might remember Jay Nolan from Hit or Miss Sundays. He was one of our featured artists for Hit or Miss Sundays, but this time he's just our featured artist of the week for the station, period. It has nothing to do with Hit or Miss Sundays or anything. He has so much stuff going on. He had a lot of stuff going on then, but he has a lot of stuff going on now, which is why we chose him as this week's second featured artist. And I like to call him the content king. If you guys aren't following him, he'll give it to you at the end, but I'll tell you now, it's real Jay Nolan. You guys got to go and look at his page. His content is amazing. If you guys know me, then you know I'm all about content. If you look at my Instagram page, like creative direction, that's what I do outside of owning the station. So I'm really excited to introduce Jay Nolan to you guys. I'm going to let him talk. I'm going to stop talking and let him come in and talk. So, Jay, how are you doing this afternoon?
I'm great. How about yourself?
I'm doing amazing. I'm doing amazing. I'm so happy that we're actually able to do this follow-up interview because the first time, you know, it was during the height of the pandemic and there was so much stuff going on with technical difficulties, and I think everyone, including Versus, were having technical difficulties during that time. During that time. So I'm really happy that things have calmed down and we're actually able to get into the interview that we said that we were going to do. I don't know if you guys remember, like early 2000s when artists used to do videos and it would say to be continued and it never continued. I didn't want it to be one of those. So we actually made good on our to be continued promise. So
Absolutely.
What we're going to talk about today is, well, before we get into that, please tell everyone who you are, what you do, and just give them a refresher if they weren't able to tune into the first interview that we did with you.
All right, cool. So, yeah, my name is Jay Nolan. I'm a hip-hop artist, songwriter, music entrepreneur, raised in Atlanta, Georgia, and you know, this music thing, like from top to bottom, is just like my bread and butter. Like every aspect of it, I'm fully immersed into it. So that's like the gist of who I am, for real.
He's being humble, guys. If this is how I am when I'm being interviewed, I feel like people are like, keep talking.
Right.
Because you do more than that. But we got introduced to Jay from his song we found in our email. It's called Lana Shit, and that track blew us away. It was amazing, and that's how he became the featured artist at that time for Hit or Miss Sundays. And as we followed him, and like I said earlier, as we followed him and got to know him, we watched his content, we just feel like there are a lot of artists out there that deserve this type of support, and that's why we give it. So that's one of the reasons that we're here. So we go from that interview, that feature, that track to a new track. It's called Splash.
Yep.
So tell us a little bit about Splash. I know you have the video out. We're going to be posting that promo video tomorrow. So tell us about Splash.
All right, so Splash is really just like a fun record, you know what I'm saying? Like, so all the way from Lana Shit up to now, all the music that I've been releasing this year has been produced by a production duo out here in Atlanta named Dope Norteria. So we created like 5 records together all last year, just doing studio sessions, and each song has like its own vibe and feel to it. So Lana Shit was like coming out the gate, like we wanted to represent the city, do something that was kind of like a homage. So leading up to Splash, I had a love song in there with Dinner for Two. I had Self Love, which was more about, you know, embracing yourself and your quirks and just really becoming one with yourself in a world where that's not always the focus, right? Mm-hmm. Had another song called Chasing Dreams, which was more of a thoughtful song introspective, talking about the times that we're living in as far as like social, political, and all that type of stuff. So coming back to Splash, it was like ending that whole series of singles with something fun, something that could play on the radio, something that could play in the clubs, and also something that I knew, because we knew we wanted to do a video for this song from the day we made it, and we wanted to make sure that we had like a group of friends together and we could actually like really bring out the vision of us just having like a cool day where we all link up with our homies, have a water gun fight at the park, and just wild out for a little bit, because we haven't been able to do that in this whole pandemic situation, social distancing and everything like that. So that's basically the culmination of how Splash even came together, because it was like, man, we know we need one more like smash out of this. If we're gonna put 5 songs, we need at least 2 that's gonna like really hit people in the gut. So that was pretty much the thought process behind it.
So you talked about this thought process and how you planned everything out. So in the beginning of this interview, I called you the content king, and that's one of the other aspects of your platform, or that's one of the other ways that you utilize your platform. Not only are you an artist, not only do you go into creative direction and planning out your videos and your content as an artist, but you also plan out the content for your Instagram page.
Oh, yeah.
And you give pointers to other artists and teaching them how to pay themselves, which is really important. So you paid homage to the city, you paid homage to love, you paid homage to self-love, now you're paying homage to the summer wrapping up, coming off of this pandemic. And you're also teaching artists how to follow that formula. So when did this become something that you were passionate about? First music, and then second, when did you become passionate about helping artists get this formula that you found out worked for you?
Got you. So music, I became passionate about like super early, young. I was probably 3-4 years old, as early as I can remember, where I was always like in front of the TV singing along to the music, like the MTV video music box. Later BET came along, you know what I'm saying? I was in tune with all of that from, you know, toddler, infant stage, you know what I mean? So it was always something that was natural to me. Once I got about like 7-8 years old, of course I have more of my mind is racing at this point, just getting involved with anything that's surrounding me, but specifically music still continued to be like a stronghold in my situation. So it's funny because my dad used to be like, he might be the rapper out the family, because there was like no song on the radio that I didn't know.
Right.
You know what I mean? Word for word, bar for bar, even like Busta Rhymes fast raps, like I was learning all of that stuff.
Right.
So he was like, he might be the artist out the family, like we gotta keep an eye on him. And like my brother, who's 5 years older than me, he was already doing music at this point too. You know what I'm saying? He had like a group, and he was living in Connecticut. He would come down to Atlanta for the summers, and me just wanting to be like my big bro was another factor of like him introducing me to the actual art of writing your own music. Because at that time I was just like, you know, following along with whatever was on the TV or the radio. So from there I got bit with that bug, and it just kind of like never stopped biting me for real. It was like, yo, oh yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
And you know, in high school it became a lot more serious for me, because like going into my freshman year of school, I really wanted to play basketball. And I was like training myself during the summer, and I was playing a game with my uncle, and I was about to beat him, and he kind of like got a little rough when I was going up for a layup, and it actually snapped my tibia.
Oh wow.
So I had to sit down the entire summer that I thought I was going to be like playing basketball or even linking up with friends or anything of that sort. My summer came to an end. Like, so I was really just at the crib trying to elevate my leg, trying to scratch myself through the cast, and listening to every CD that I had in the house. And I kept collecting CDs because I didn't have nothing better to do.
Right.
So that was like a time when I really like started studying the mechanics of how rappers put their bars together, rhyme patterns, schemes. Oh, this person raps like this person raps like that. So then I just started like practicing all of those different techniques, and I went back to school that freshman year of high school with a full rhyme book full of like just different stuff, and I was showing it to my friends. And one of my homies named Khalif, he actually went around the school during his different classes just like saying lyrics out of the book to people, and they was like, what album is that on? And he like, oh no, that's my homeboy Nolan. So it just became like a thing where people was like, hey, I heard you rap, like kick something. And at first I was nervous as hell because I'm like, I really ain't been doing nothing but writing.
Right.
I don't even know how to perform this shit. So
right.
I had to like start getting comfortable actually doing it in front of people, and you know, that trickled down into battling and freestyle ciphers, and you know, I just kind of basically took every step that I figured at the time was valuable to me, you know. And of course I had to come to a crossroads later on, like, okay, it's not just about rapping technique and being this technically skilled lyricist. Like, there's so much more to it, so I had to catch up on that end later.
Mm-hmm. So the cool thing about that is that you learned early how to pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Because you thought you were going to be a basketball player. You knew you loved music, but
right.
at the time, you just knew you were going to be a basketball player.
Right.
And then getting injured, you had to pivot, and you found out that you had another love. And I think that's what people can take from that story, is just like learning how to pivot and understanding that you can have more than one thing that you love and enjoy. And because this one path that you had might have had a bump in the road, or it ended, it's okay to pivot into something else.
Right.
And the other part of the pivot was you thought you were just a writer, but you were put on the spot and had to perform, and you were willing to step up to the plate and do that. And I'm pretty sure that has helped you right now in your career, now that you're doing more performances, which we're going to get into in a minute. So taking this journey and having to learn on your own during your downtime from your basketball career, when did you figure out that there were steps to getting paid and that you could actually pay yourself? And going through all of that, why are you willing to give those gems to other artists? I know we're going to get into your ebook. You don't always give it away for free, but you do have content on your page where you are giving them gems.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about your journey to learning how to pay yourself and understanding why it's important. Let's talk about that journey first.
All right, cool. So, like, it took me a long time to understand that, because especially given the time period that I'm coming up, you know what I mean? So like, I'm getting into music at a pivotal time. It's like 2007 through like 2010, 12. Like, none of this streaming was out there. Like, we really thought getting a mixtape on Dat Piff was like the move, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's a big difference from how things look today. So at that time, you could easily find yourself getting a buzz for yourself on the internet, but you don't have no type of monetized product available for nobody. And like, then the world just changes on you with no preparation. It's just like, oh, this is here now, so adjust. And then
the only monetization back then was like ringtones. Like, that's
you had ringtones, and like, of course, at that time period, we didn't have all of these. Like, today, it's like 1 million music distribution companies out there that you can get your stuff on there, like, in the blink of an eye. You know what I mean? You could pick your poison. But at that time, it's like, how do you even that? And then it's like, how do I even get to iTunes? You know what I'm saying? Because iTunes was around, but it was like, how do you get on it? And then you had to like do your research to get that far, and then that's like the pinnacle, right? So it's like, oh, I'm on iTunes now, I'm popping, but you're not. You know what I mean? So I literally went through.
Even when
go ahead.
Nipsey had his buzz,
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off, he still sold his CD out the trunk, and that's how he got the eyes of Jay-Z, because he's like, here's my product. And that wasn't like, that was so long ago, but even he had to get out there. And
there was a lot of bumps and bruises with his way of like doing things, because when he said my mixtape is $100, I remember vividly people was not rocking with that. You know what I'm saying? And then he followed up and said, oh, y'all ain't like that? Well, the next one is 1,000. And people was like, really? Like, you really on dope?
Yes.
But people bought it, and people bought into his movement because he was so focused on what he was doing. It's like, you don't got to understand it today, but I'm still going to be here, and I'm still keep pushing this line to where you're going to have to respect it. So
he added value to himself.
Absolutely. So I'm younger than him, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like looking at, okay, dang, that's hard how he did that. I'm looking at him. I'm looking at people like Ryan Leslie at the time. He had came out with like Superphone and all of this type of stuff. And I had a podcast, so we were covering these things, and it was like so new, and we were like trying to pivot out of like talking about gossip, like, oh, who's beefing today? Like, I was really like, man, I'm not into all that. So let's talk about this Superphone thing over here. And what that did was it just like opened up a rabbit hole of information to me. Like, okay, what is that? How's he getting paid from it? How's he getting paid, period? Because I ain't heard him in so long. Like, he's not on mainstream anything anymore, but his lifestyle looks like it continues to elevate. So that's what really like changed the course for me, because I just felt like I was just kind of floating, you know what I mean? Like, I knew I had the talent, I knew I could put music out, I knew I had a select amount of people that were tuned into what I was doing, but I didn't know how to get to the next level, or what the next level really looks like, since I didn't have like industry, family, you know what I'm saying, or nobody that was at another higher level to just be like, oh, come up here, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, I really got to get it out the mud. I got to build this up, and if I don't figure something out, then I'm going to have to stop. Right. You know what I mean? So I knew that that's not what I wanted to do. So I just really like used this internet, this Google, and all of this type of stuff to my advantage, and just really immerse myself into it the same way that I did with rapping. Like, because I knew it was a point in time in my life where from the time I woke up to the time I went to sleep, I was consumed with bars. Right. Writing my own, studying others, the whole nine. So it's like, if I can do that, then I need to put that same energy and focus into this business thing. So that's exactly what I did. And the reason why it's so important to me to give it back to people is because, like I said, I didn't have nobody to pass it on to me. Like, anybody that I dealt with that wanted to be of assistance really couldn't be of assistance. Like, they might have had a desire to help me. Like, it was this one guy, and I respect him a lot. He put me on to like some shows and some showcases. He got me in a room with like some dope producers, but those producers produce for like people in the industry, so they're not worried about me. They're like, okay, little homie, cool. Right. You know what I'm saying? Holla at me when y'all get them together, though. Yeah. So it's like, hey,
let me know when you're done with your artist development. And then
it's like, you know, either let me know when you're ready development wise, or let me know when you got 5,000 for a beat, homie. Like, exactly. So it's like, damn, I ain't got neither one. Like,
like buzz or budget.
Yeah.
Which one do you have?
Exactly. So I'm like, okay, this ain't the move. So once I really like, and then of course we got to a certain point, maybe within the last 5 years, where everybody started talking about their masters and, oh, these people still own my publishing, and like artists started really being transparent about how bad they really had it, because there was so much of that mid-2000s era where it was like everybody had jewelry, everybody was doing MTV Cribs, and it was the trickle-down effects even after Cribs ended, where it was like, that's what we want. But So you'll easily think, okay, everybody in the music industry is just living it up.
Right.
But then next thing you know, it's like, oh, this person owns my publishing, this person owns my masters, this company won't let me out my contract. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, oh, nah, like.
Or all those cars and jewelry, they found out later that it was coming out of their back end.
Yeah, coming out their back end. It was a gift. It was rented. It was borrowed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The whole nine.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, this ain't really it. But then, of course, you start looking at, all right, well, who owns these companies that own everything? Like, what are they doing? Why do they have all of this? And how did they get it? So that became like my new obsession. And so the reason why it's important to me, like I said, is because nobody ever came and just like sat me down and gave me a crash course on what all of this is. And I know there's millions of people out there that are going through the same growing pains that I went through, that don't have no guidance, no mentorship, no leadership. And it's like, in order for there to be a fully functional independent business, like, we have to be educated in order to be a resource. Because like, I can collaborate with somebody up the street right now and we can pay each other. Like, you know what I'm saying? We don't have to wait on Universal to say we're worth something for us,
right,
to start building up our value. So that's my whole thing, is like, the more I teach y'all, the more prepared we all are to do business together, and we can build this whole thing up. So yeah, it may be $100 in circulation right now, but as we continue to grow, we're gonna, number one, just as you say, I'm the content king. The content increases your value, or at least your perceived value.
Absolutely.
So now it's like, okay, well, we're circulating $100 between us, but then this company over here says, oh, well, that has more value than that. Let's pay boom, boom, boom. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, that's my new feed-in. You know what I mean? And then you keep growing, and then you still paying people. So as y'all are getting more money, y'all can continue to pay each other. So that's my whole outlook on what the independent community, independent ecosystem can and should be. So I'm going to keep, like, doing that for as long as I'm, you know, as long as I have the time to do it, you know what I mean? And even when I don't, I want to, you know, digitize it if I have to where it's like, all right, maybe I'm not going to sit and record this video today. Maybe I just do 10 videos and then roll them out, or have a course or something, but I'm not going to just like alienate the people that built me up.
Right. And that makes sense. It's just like, for the black community, a lot of times people are the first entrepreneur in their family, so they don't have a blueprint. And you have this whole narrative of, that's why I don't support black-owned businesses, the customer service is this, and this. Well, there isn't a handbook in our community for us to go and copy.
Yeah.
To understand how customer service should work. You know, people think that it's common sense, but it's really not common sense.
It's not, yeah.
When you compare a mom and pop store or a black-owned business to Target, or even Walmart, people do complain about Walmart and their long lines and different things like that. But when you do compare to a business that's established and has been established for a really long time and has been passed down for a really long time, it's really unfair, because when you walk into an established business, the first thing they do is hand you their handbook. They have the rules already written out, and when you buy into that franchise, like if you buy a Subway, they give you a packet and say, here's what we found to work for this franchise. The signage should look like this. Your meat should be at this temperature. They give you everything that you need, and then you're investing in the knowledge that they've already acquired.
Absolutely.
And you're just renting it from them, so to speak, and you know how to run your Subway. But if you've never had anyone before you...
My only pushback on that is attention to detail, because we work at these places. Yes. And they train us.
I was going to say that, but I was going to say that. This is what I was going to say. But it also goes back to I don't want people to be mad at me for saying this, but it goes back to your family.
Yeah.
And how what they instill in you.
Right. Yep.
So for me, when I worked in corporate America, I worked for Al Lerner. A lot of people may not know who he is, but if you watch football, you know that Al Lerner used to be one of the owners of the Browns. He passed away.
Gotcha.
He was a really great mentor to a lot of us. I don't think he realized that, but his whole focus was the customer. His whole focus was like, he capitalized the word customer. They are important. They are the end all be all.
Right.
But he also focused on how we treated each other as coworkers. And he was really big on just all these principles, and he was really big on the environment, how all the buildings look, what we didn't have, like, our cafeterias looked like restaurants.
Right.
You know, he was really big on, if your employees are happy, then your customers will be happy. If your customers are happy, your employees will be happy. So he was, the circle of life for him about business was just making everyone comfortable, happy, making sure, you know, everyone wanted to pull into work. Like, you wanted to be proud to say, oh, I work at this place because the buildings look so good. There were paintings everywhere. Like, he really made the buildings look like this luxury hotel. And working there, I took that model into my entrepreneurship. So there may not have been tons of people that were ahead of me as far as starting a business, even though that's something I'll get into, you know, with my own thing with my great grandmother. She's someone that influenced me. But like you said, we work at these places, and you've been around policies, but it all depends on where you've worked, what type of policies, if going to work was something that you actually respected. Because a lot of people in our community, and I'm pretty sure you've gone to places before, and you've been in line, and your cashier was a black person, and when you got into the line and it was your turn to have your stuff rung up, they felt comfortable. They're like, and they say, I can't wait to get off this damn job. I to get off work, smoke me a blunt, give me a beer. I'm so tired of working here. And I've had that happen to me before, and it does get to me, because it's just like, just because you're black and I'm black doesn't mean that you get to be unprofessional and tell me about this blunt that you want to smoke when you get off work and how much you hate it here. It's just a lot that we still have to learn about professionalism in our community. We're working on it. We're getting there. We have people like you.
Yeah, it's a mentality thing, man, because I know, like, because I've worked at some of these restaurants, you know what I'm saying, and I always looked at everything as an opportunity, even if it wasn't the perceived as the greatest. I knew it was going to lead me to the next thing, so I always looked at it that way and treated it as such, you know what I mean, but not everybody has that type of mentality.
Yeah, and I think it just goes back to what your family taught you to value. I think that's one of the reasons why our neighborhoods look the way that they do, because a lot of black people are made to feel like the hood is invaluable. So let's not even worry about how it looks, because we're working to move to the burbs. When we get to the burbs, and we're taught to value the suburbs, we're taught to value other people's neighborhoods. So we don't do the things in other people's neighborhoods that we'll do in ours. We'll throw trash out the window in ours, but when we go to this neighborhood, we're definitely not going to throw trash out the window here.
Thanks.
So we have enough sense to know what to do in certain spaces and what not to do in certain spaces. So that's not to say that, you know, making an excuse for that, but it is a good idea to have that blueprint when there isn't a blueprint.
For sure.
And I would say that the indie space in music definitely didn't have a blueprint, because before now, no one knew they could be indie. Because it was always get a deal, get a deal, get a deal, get a deal. The big pimping era was big pimping, baby, and everybody had a record deal.
And there was a time period when being indie was frowned upon. For real. I remember
because it meant broke.
Yep. Or at least
what we thought.
Yeah.
I think Tech Nine was one of the first people to make people see that being indie meant.
Yeah. And it took him a long time before people understood.
Yes. Yes. It's like it's kind of like how we were as a radio station when you would say that you were a digital radio station or internet radio station. Oh, you guys aren't a real radio station.
Yep.
And now everyone is digital.
Yep.
You know, everyone wants to be online. It's just like, no, we pay licensing fees too.
Exactly.
It just doesn't say FM or AM after our name. So I think it just takes that pioneer to be willing to be the first person to step outside the box.
For sure.
And say, this is what I'm going to do, and I want to be that blueprint for others. So, speaking of being a blueprint for others, you've done all this research, you've figured out how to make being indie work for you.
Yes.
And you're talking about laying the blueprint. So you have this ebook. And it's called the Pen Game Portfolio. I know it's a longer name than that, so I'm going to have you give everyone the second part of it, but it's called the Pen Game Portfolio. So that's your first version, or one of your first versions of the blueprint that you're laying for indie artists. It's not free, guys. I know you didn't think he was going to do all this research and give you every single thing for free. You have to invest in yourself. It takes money to make money. So tell us about the Pen Game Portfolio.
Okay, so yeah, it's the Pen Game Portfolio, and the second part of the title is how to monetize your music as an independent artist. And basically, it just goes over all of the, so it goes over the basics of how the music business works. Because as we were just talking about, that's the big meat of why everything is the way it is. Like, if you don't understand how it works, you're coming in at a huge handicap. So the whole point of the book, even though it says how to monetize your music, it's really about how to register your music so that you can monetize it. You know what I'm saying? And then we get into, later on in the book, techniques on how to actually start implementing that. So stuff simple as, like, you wouldn't believe, well, I'm sure you would, but the average person wouldn't believe how many songs are floating around with no copyright owner. You know what I'm saying? And why that matters. Because when we talk about owning masters, that's exactly what it is copyright ownership, intellectual property. So that's like one of the first things that I slap people with in the book, because it's such a common term, but we still don't correlate master ownership with the Copyright Office. They go hand in hand. You know what I mean? So,
and just to cut you off for 2 seconds, and for people that are listening, a lot of times you guys are wondering why a lot of indie artists are like, oh, this bigger artist stole my song, or this person stole my song, and you're wondering, how does that happen?
Right.
So a lot of times artists are so excited about this new song they just made in the studio and they put it online, not realizing that mainstream artists know about copyright.
Yep.
They also know that most indie artists don't know about copyright.
Yep.
So if you put your song out there and it's not copywritten, it can be stolen.
Absolutely.
That's one of the ways that it happens.
Yep. So that's the first thing. Then you got, publishing, which is a whole huge world within itself. People don't understand, like, the publishing is like, that's your bread and butter on how you're gonna eat. Like, if you don't have your name on that when your music, even if you catch a hot song, like, you could be broke with the most grossing single in the game. It could be generating $5 million a month, and you'll be looking up like, my life ain't changed at all.
Right.
If somebody else took the rights to your publishing, or, you know what I'm saying? Because even talking to, like, managers and stuff, there's a lot of managers out here who end up being the administrator for everything that their artist is doing, because the artists don't want to get hands-on and learn it for themselves. But you're trusting an extra layer of a person that's flawed, has their own needs, wants, etc., So who's to say that they're not going to put themselves in on something that they're actually not entitled to? You're just trusting them. You know what I mean? To go, oh, yeah, make sure that's taken care of. Oh, yeah, I got you, bro. We're going to do this. Nope. Do it yourself. It takes 10 minutes. So walking people through that, walking people through one thing that's like huge for me is the world of sync licensing, you know what I'm saying, which is, you know, another arm of publishing, you know what I mean, because I was introduced to that world in 2013 where I was able to make off of one placement on a UFC show more than I was making off of trying to put songs on iTunes. You know what I'm saying? And it showed me a lot because I'm like, dang, I'm promoting this, I'm getting all my family and friends, and, you know, some of them are actually buying it. But it's like, I didn't have to promote this to nobody. It just went out and changed my perspective completely. Like, oh, man, that's another side. I got to get more in tune with that. You know what I'm saying? Especially because I don't have the marketing dollars to try to go compete with Drake, Wayne, Jay-Z, and all these people, so I'm not going to just sell hella records just off of my own muscle. So that was easy. I might as well let me get tapped into the easy stuff, and then I can invest into myself in a different way. So that's been another model that I've been following. Then teaching artists that you're more than just what you think you are, because when we say we're an artist, the majority of us as independent artists, we write our own music. You're a writer, you know what I'm saying? Which means you don't have to just write for yourself. Right. There's so many other, yeah, absolutely, a business, right? So now it's like you don't just have to. Anything that you can do for yourself can be transferred to somebody else or some other company, or you know what I'm saying. So it's like providing services has been another part of monetizing my business as an artist. You know what I'm saying? Like everything doesn't have to be under the J Nolan umbrella, but I'm still gonna eat off of it. Like, down to...
And that goes back to publishing, because if you're writing, you get publishing credits.
Absolutely,
publishing credits are huge.
For sure.
So, but that goes back to understanding the blueprint. Because if you understand the blueprint and you understand the business that you're getting into, then you can figure out, like you're doing, different ways to get paid. And it helps you understand more of how you are a business and not just an artist.
Absolutely. So it's like, man, all of this stuff, like even down to producers and session musicians and stuff. There's so many different ways that you can monetize your craft. You know what I'm saying? One thing that I'm, you know, one of my next goals to tap into is, you know, just like audio. I you know, we think, you say audio, of course you think song, but that's not what I'm talking about. Like, I'm going to start selling my voice, you know what I mean, in terms of like doing vocal packs that a producer can take, chop up, and create samples out of, you know what I'm saying, because every producer needs samples. Of course, you can't sample James Brown no more, you know what I mean, so, like, come to me. I got it, you know what I mean, and get the paperwork right, get the publishing stuff, and you can pay an upfront fee just for access to it, and let's work, you know what I mean? And of course, a producer by the name of Liam Lizzy really opened up that door to me. He was like, yo, why don't you do that? You know what I'm saying? We got packs over here. We got sound packs and drum kits and all of this stuff. Like, you're an artist, you can do the same thing. I was like, oh, snap. You know what I mean? So it's so many other ways that you can just really, like, this word gets a bad rap, but it's like, exploit yourself. You know what I mean? Like, any contract you look at is going to have the word exploit in it. And if you're thinking of it from the typical exploit, you know, dang, you exploiting me? What's that? Like, no. It means, it's like, it's worth something.
Exactly. You know, use your value to the fullest, but make it work in your favor.
Absolutely.
And negotiate your own terms.
Yep.
You're exploiting your value to the limit.
Yeah, exactly. So these are all just the things that I'm laying out in the book, and I want people to like get a thorough understanding of it, because like I said before, the more that we all know, the better equipped we are to work together, to go out into the world when we do meet these people that we respect and revere, because they already know what we don't. So we're naturally, we're not at the same level of fame, popularity, so we're already working at a deficit there. But then, not knowing anything, you're at an extreme deficit because they know how they could take advantage of you from the second you walk in the room. So
absolutely. And I also think that having more people, I think here's the other thing that a lot of people who have more knowledge than others, some people fail to realize. They think that them being the most knowledgeable person will get them richer faster, or you know, it gives them some advantage over everyone else. But if you're the smartest person in the room, you're at a disadvantage because you're the only person that holds the key. So if you're the only person that holds the key to the door, that means you have to wake up every day and open the door for everybody.
Yep.
You have to be there when everyone leaves to lock the door. You can't go on vacation. Like, and I'm using this just literally. It's just saying, like, when you are the only person that has the key to the door, that means you have to be everything for everybody. You know how exhausting that can be? That's very exhausting. And then if you're the only person that has this key and you're trying to negotiate your rates for opening the door, no one can really, they don't really understand your value because there's nothing to compare it to.
Right.
So if we all have knowledge and we're all working to make the indie industry stronger, now there's an easier way to negotiate your fees and place value on what it is that you know because they've seen the model work.
Yep.
If you're the only person standing out here, it's kind of like, well, how do I know you're worth me giving you $50,000? I don't know. I don't have anything to compare it to. So now that I have this blueprint and they've seen J. Nolan write these ebooks and everyone's using the ebook and they see that it's working, like, wow, these points that he's making, they actually work. These gems that he's dropping, they're actually working for everyone else. So when he comes to me and says, I need 50,000, they're like, okay, I now know that you're worth this 50 grand because I'm seeing it work for all these other people. So I think that people have to understand that that's another important aspect of dropping knowledge. You don't want to give everything you know away for free, but you also want to share the knowledge because you don't want to be the only person to hold that knowledge because it doesn't really give it that much value because you're not showing that other people can actually use what you know. So I think that it's amazing that you're willing to share because a lot of people aren't willing to share. And I also think that it's dope that you're actually showing artists like, yes, I'm willing to share, but my knowledge is worth enough that I place value on it to where you have to buy my ebook. You have to pay for my consultation services. It's not just something that's free. And if you don't find value in my prices, then you don't find value in yourself. You just got to invest in yourself. You don't expect to go to the studio for free. And if you do, I don't know what type of quality you're expected to get out of that studio session. So, so also, in speaking about you dropping gems and value, I know that you have a speaking engagement coming up on September 25th.
Yes.
And it's called For the Love of Art. So it's not your event, but they actually had you come in. They asked you to come in and speak. So tell us about this event and what you're going to be talking about and why it would be beneficial for those in your area to attend.
Okay. So, on September 25th, doing For the Love of Art. And shout out to Queen Scholar, who actually reached out to me to be a part of it. She's somebody who's been paying attention to everything that I've been doing. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hold on one second. Okay. I just want to make sure my 5G didn't go away because for a split second, it was a lag. So I don't know if it was my end or your end, but you're fine now. So start with...
Okay, cool.
Just start over. About...
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, on September 25th, I'll be at For the Love of Art. Shout out to Queen Scholar, who actually reached out for me to be a part of it. She's been somebody that's, she's paid attention to a lot of the content that I've been putting out, and, she was like, hey, I would love for you to share this wealth of knowledge that you put on your page and into your book. If you come out and be a part of my event and just come speak to fellow creatives, we're going to have some younger artists in the building that are going to need this information. So I was like, that's a no-brainer, you know what I mean? Because that's basically what I do it for, is to educate and give people the information that may not be so easily accessible. Because, of course, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of pages out there on Instagram right now that are giving out information, but not all of it is accurate. So you also got to look into that, you know what I mean? Because some people may interpret one thing as something else, and then they put it out there, and then now misinformation is being spread as fact. So another important thing for me.
Speaking of misinformation, you're absolutely correct. There are a lot of pages out here that over inundate you with information.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times people think that, because people have realized that content is king.
Right.
And a lot of times people make their pages look really pretty, and they get in the camera and they talk to you like this, and they're like, I really know, hey guy, you know. And when you really break down what they're talking about, they're really not talking about anything.
Right.
But one of the things that I like that you do is not only do you have the ebook, but you also you have this hands-on approach. Everyone learns differently.
Right.
And it goes back to what I was saying about entrepreneurship. A lot of times, there are people who really do need someone to hold their hand. I think we have to start being so hard on people. Not everyone can consume knowledge and retain knowledge by reading.
Right.
A lot of people that they need, some people are visual learners. Some people need to see videos. Some people need you to sit next to them and show them the ropes, and then they have it. So I think that your hands-on approach, going to events, the ebook, making the videos, doing consultations, I think that's amazing that you're willing to give people the knowledge that they need in many different ways, because you realize that it's important and everyone learns differently.
Absolutely. And
so,
it's funny because the consultations really came from like requests. I wasn't even going into it expecting to do that. It was like, oh, really? You people care that much? All right, bet.
Yeah, because that's dope. I mean, I think people realize, like, I really need this information. They see that it's working for you, but they're like, I know I'm not about to Google this. And if I do, the thing about Google is there are so many hits come back. So you're like, which one do I click on?
Yep.
And then you can go down a whole rabbit hole.
Yep.
Of research on Instagram. I mean, on Google, even Instagram. You get on YouTube, and there's so many different videos, and you have to figure out, does this person's personality fit with my way of learning?
Yep.
And maybe this person doesn't. And it's real easy to get discouraged, but if you have someone that broke it down and can give you the information the way that you can understand, I would have booked a consultation with you too if I was one of those people. Like, hey, this is interesting. I see it's working for you. Can we talk in person? Because this is important to me. My career is important to me. So, you know, now that you have the ebook and you have your consultations, let's go back to you being an artist. You still are an artist. You're still performing. You're still somehow finding time to give your craft to the world. So you have recently had a performance this past Sunday. It was a virtual performance.
Yes.
And I know that we're getting back to people doing shows, but at the same time, people are a little bit reluctant, and we're still doing virtual performances. So how has this changed for you? Are you enjoying it? Tell us how your last performance went. Like, give us all the, what they say, the tea.
All right, bet. So, yeah, the performance I did on Sunday was with this organization based out of New York called EOW, which is an abbreviation for End of the Week. It's basically like a true MC, rappers platform. They've been around for years, and, you know, people like Lupe Fiasco are, like, really big champions of this league. So it was a real honor when I was, you know, asked to be a part of it. Now, as far as doing like virtual performances on Zoom, one thing that does get lost in translation is syncopation and rhythm, because you can perform the song exactly the way it sounds, and the person on the other end may not receive it that way. So that's the hard part. It'd be like, man, you way off beat. What are you doing? It's like, it's perfect on my end.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's one thing that I have not enjoyed about it. But one thing that I did do was I started taking matters into my own hands and like filming my own performances like in a studio setting or like a setup to where it can be put out exactly how I want it to. And that's one thing. Yeah, and it's one thing that I really encourage artists to do more of, because for me personally, as somebody who had COVID coming into this year, I'm still not like ready to just be around hundreds of people thinking everything is all beautiful, you know what I mean? So just today I had to tell this promoter who I really respect, and he had stuff on the table like, hey man, come to this, come to this, come to this. And I was like, man, I'm just not at that space. Like, I'm doing the speaking engagement on the 25th because I know it's going to be a limited amount of people, but your events are too popping for me right now. Like, I know what you do. And he understood it, but I've been having to tell people all year, like, I'm not really booking like that. If we want to do something that's more like filmed, I'm all for that because I can roll it out, and I'm gonna be 100. Like, for some of the stuff people come to independent artists with, it's not beneficial enough to be coming out the house. Like, so I'm gonna come to your event. You don't want to pay me nothing. I'm gonna get some trash iPhone footage. It sounds terrible. It might look decent, but it sounds bad. I'm gonna put it on my IG when I could just go. I could go set up my phone in a well-lit place, get the audio right, and I could do it myself. You wasn't gonna pay me anyway, so I could do my own free show for my fans. So, or you know what I mean? Like, you could make people pay for it if you want to. Like, hey, I got this dope thing that I really put a lot of time and energy into. I want to present it to y'all, but you got to pay me $2, $5. You know what I'm saying? If you got 5,000-6,000 followers, somebody in there going to tune in, and then you can still give it to the rest of the people later. But I think that just really in general, my whole thing with moving forward as an artist, as an independent artist, is making people like get more comfortable paying for things again. Like, we've gotten so trained to expect everything for free. It is like, y'all want people to live, but y'all don't want to pay. You know what I'm saying? When people come out and say, man, I'm jacked up out here, it's like everybody's crying. But when they try to get, you know what I mean? And I understand some people do low quality stuff, low tier stuff that doesn't really seem like it has value. I get that part. But if you know somebody is really putting a lot into something and they're really putting their all into their presentation, like, this ain't no free practice. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. I was going to say that was doing your own show helps you have content.
Yep.
The way that you want it to look, and you get to control the outcome of the performance. You basically said everything that I was going to follow up and say. You know, the only cool thing about having footage from shows is missing out on the crowd interaction.
Right.
But there's no guarantee all the time as an indie artist that the promoter is going to do their job to make sure there's a big enough crowd to where that part of the footage is worth going out. It's not like you're missing out on that.
Exactly.
But being able to control the environment, you're able to monetize that footage. You're able to have it look exactly how you want it to
you can
look.
Reuse it for as long as you want to. Like, because people ain't going to remember. Like, by the time you post it again, they're going to be like, oh, this is fire. You know what I mean?
Facts.
So,
facts. Facts. And speaking of that, I know Nicki Minaj is taking a lot of flack, and she's someone that is being paid or could possibly be paid top dollar for coming out of her house. And she's just like, no, it's not worth me coming out. I just had a baby. You know, we're not to get too much into that, but basically what you're saying, like,
it's a lot of things that got to be factored.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with people with families. Like, we're not out here just doing everything on our own. You know what I mean? And just like going home to, like, some people are just, you know, single and don't really care. That's cool. I mean, if that's your situation, but everybody's not living in that situation.
Exactly. And people fail to realize, like what Andre 3000 said in the one song, he's like, if you don't move your feet, then we don't eat. Like, we're like neck and neck. He's basically saying, like, even if our checks are bigger than yours, we still live paycheck to paycheck.
Yep.
So it goes back to what you were saying as far as entertainers and indie artists and just artists in general. People don't realize, like, this is your job. This is what I get paid to do. My health, my well-being is important, because if I don't show up for work, or I'm unable to show up for work, I don't eat, I don't feed my family. This is my paycheck. This is how I live. So I think that it's really important, again, for people like yourself, like a Nicki Minaj, to stand up and say, hey, there's other options that I'd like to utilize.
Exactly.
And in doing that, it helps the next person who really didn't or may not have had the ability or the personality to stand up for themselves. They didn't want to do the show either, but they weren't afraid to speak up. But if they're saying this person speak up and that person speak up, like, whew, because I've been tired of going to these shows. I really want to do something virtually.
Yeah, you know, I've seen a lot of artists that, you know, once these venues open back up, it was like, well, if I want to get this publicity or whatever, I got to go back out here and do it. And I'm like, all right, you know, not me.
Yeah. I've been the same way as far as, like, covering events and stuff. I'm just like, we can do some virtual interviews and, you know, we can do this and that, but I just haven't seen anything worth me just going into a crowd of people and standing there talking like this when you're going to forget about us being there after 2 days anyway. So, yeah, it's just all about making your own choices for yourself. So, as we wrap up, let me just go from the beginning. So, you went from pivoting from being the next Kobe.
I wasn't that good, but I appreciate it.
You know, and then I think we laughed about this the last time when we called you Ray Cash. But you went from Kobe to Ray Cash.
Yeah. Pimp in my own mind.
Exactly. To being the content king and learning how to monetize yourself. Now you're killing the virtual performance world, and you're also getting yourself out there with being on mainstream as far as like the UFC and all those different ways of finding ways to pay yourself. And I just think that it's amazing that basically I think what we can all take out of this is pivoting, learning how to pivot and being okay with that. And I think the pandemic taught us all how to pivot, I think, at once. And understanding your value. And a part of understanding your value is learning when to give back, how to give back, when to invest in yourself, when to invest in knowledge. And I think that those are some important points that people can take away from this. So as we wrap up, can you give everyone your social media handles, how they can follow you, also give them information on how they can purchase your ebook and do virtual consultations?
Absolutely.
Very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. So on social media, I'm at Real J Nolan. So that's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, if you use that. Everything is under Real J Nolan. YouTube.com/J Nolan, because I got a lot of content on there as well. But if you want to get the ebook, that's realjnolan.com. If you want to book a consultation with me, easiest way to do that is just to reach out at realjnolan@gmail.com. Everything is going to be Real J Nolan pretty much for the most part. So you can kind of plug and play with that. Like Real J Nolan, everything is going to pretty much lead you back to me. So if there's anything you need, plug that in, hit me up. I do respond to DMs. I'm not one of these people that just read your stuff and keep it moving. So
absolutely. So get with Jay Nolan. Like, he has definitely established himself as an expert in his field and what he does. He knows what he's talking about, guys. And if this interview didn't solidify that for you, then make sure you go on YouTube, watch some of his videos. If you're on Instagram, follow his Instagram page, because he drops a lot of knowledge. He drops a lot of gems on his Instagram page as well. So if none of this stuff convinces you that Jay Nolan is an expert in what he does, I don't know what to tell you. I don't really know what to tell you.
I agree.
So I thank you so much for sitting down with me today for our to-be-continued interview.
Right.
We didn't leave him hanging. Yes. So we're going to get into our this or that. And I tried to make it like a little bit about content, and then the very last one is definitely like an Atlanta-based like question.
Okay.
That I think you'll find funny. So hopefully. So the first one is, which I think in the interview just a this or that ancestor. We love and appreciate you.
Absolutely, I appreciate it myself.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for doing the this or that with me. This is just a fun way to get to know the artist a little bit more. But I also want to say again, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this interview. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your evening.
Absolutely. Thank you. Same to you.
You're welcome.